So I'm not sure it's an indoctrination. I think it's just maybe an awareness of things that happen in society. And that doesn't mean that the pendulum doesn't swing too far sometimes, but I'm not sure I would call it an indoctrination. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, when I was in school, I learned that it was a mental disorder. I know that's changed, but it was in the DSM-5 as a mental disorder. And I accept that there are mental disorders, and people that are suffering from mental disorders should never be treated by people harassing them or people yelling at them or calling them names. So I'm sorry that someone that you knew went through that. But, you know, when people had mental disorders, it wasn't, at least it wasn't commonplace to try to teach them about and normalize the mental disorders in classrooms, because children are experimenting with ideas and children always want to be different. Yeah. And if you say to kids, like, you know, obviously propaganda works. If you tell kids smoke cigarettes, they all start smoking cigarettes. We've learned this. And then in my generation, we stomped out smoking cigarettes because of the reverse course on that and saying like, no, actually cancer kills. Well, they taught us in the classroom that cancer kills. And now the majority of people who were smoking like crazy in the 80s are not smoking anymore. So we know that psychological conditioning works, and that the majority of these 12-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds are not non-binary. They're just learning that as a way to be different, they can experiment with these things. And unfortunately, these have very evil results, because kids are being put on drugs that are quite literally used on pedophiles.
Well, that's not necessarily so. But listen, let me just say that about the drug. I think there are a lot of things on
pedophiles in prison. That's what's being given to children.
There's a lot to respond to that as far as the indoctrination. If it was an indoctrination, then I went to a Catholic school, so then I would be, you know, a straight male married to a woman who attends church every single day. If there was any sort of indoctrination that was happening, so apparently the indoctrination at the Catholic school did not work on me, because I ended up being the exact opposite of what they wanted. The other thing is that the whole idea that they're giving young children drugs at an age, and the children are getting to decide at an age that they need these medical drugs for transitioning, that is absolutely not true.
What do you mean that's not true?
And also,
you can get puberty blockers as a child. I had a whole person on my show who
that's also with
that transition
of the family, and the family. You can get puberty blockers as a child, but the parents have to decide that. That's not some
so they can get puberty blockers.
Who's decide? The parent and the child gets to decide that. So
okay, but that they should puberty blockers fundamentally alter them for life.
Disorder. You understand that it has not been, you know, it's been deemed not to be a mental disorder, and then you're saying that it, you know, that you're. In your rhetoric, you're saying that it's a mental disorder.
It is a mental disorder. That's what I learned in school.
It's not a mental disorder.
Okay, if you think that you're a boy and you're actually a girl, you are suffering from a mental disorder, obviously, because you can't actually change your sex, obviously.
I know plenty of children now. I know plenty.
You can play dress up, but you can't change your sex. I know plenty
of young people and old people who are trans, right? And they are not pretending. And it is not a mental disorder.
Well, it is pretending, because you will literally never be able, if you are a little boy, to grow up and have a baby, because you're not a little girl.
I would hope that your child would not grow up, or your children would not grow up, and then thinking that they're trans, and then their parents telling them the exact opposite.
I would tell them that they have a mental disorder, and we're going to get them help.
All right. So Candace, Owens keeps it real with Don. Go ahead, Luis. I see you jump.
I gotta say, man, you know, Don Lemon has always had this very, you know, gray kind of background in terms of his track record on covering certain topics and not being very forthcoming and honest about where we are as a country, as a community of people, as, you know, a political system, etc. I find it very dishonest on his part, right? Because there's been this huge push, like, for parents to give puberty blockers to their children. Like, you gotta understand, like, these kids is not fully developed. Like, young people still have a lot of learning to do in, you know, going through their you know, coming out of their shells. And this idea that we're introducing to think that they're one sex or the other is extremely too detrimental to them. And I think that it's pushed upon them more often than not, because those are conversations that parents have with their children at home as opposed to the school having with them, right? I find that today, more often than not, the public educational system is trying to become the new parent. Parents now are only like the money machine. In the public educational system is now the new parent, the new indoctrination of what to think, what to read, you know, how to essentially vote in the future once you get to that point, right? It's just a lot of these things that I didn't really see growing up when I was in school. Like there wasn't certain things pushed. Everything was still pretty much on the table for discussion in discourse, but not the way that it's being portrayed today. Today, there's a very clear agenda when it comes to the dynamic of relationships. There's clearly a strong agenda with the uprising of women's success. There's clearly an agenda even towards the uh, trans and young people being exposed to that, right, at a very young age, right? Young people are supposed to be in a young person's place, creative, drawing, design, writing, etc., learning about the world in other aspects outside of the political arena and outside of the sexual arena. They'll get to that point, but I feel like that we're kind of pushing these things at such an early age, and it's a very um surgical manner, right? It's very surgically kind of interwoven into our fabric of a society that you see it in popular culture now, whether it's TV shows, cartoons, and it's in every aspect now, right? So even before you as a parent have that conversation, the world around you is having that. The world around you is having that conversation with your child, and you don't even know it. So, hey, you.
All right, go ahead, Allie.
Um, I think that I would agree that the focus on all of this within the public school sector is quite bizarre. And I think what we should start seeing more of is if parents want to get, I'm a lifetime parochial student, high school, grade school, college. And it's like if parents want to have control of that, then they need to start investing more in their children and putting them in those environments if that's what they want their children to be raised around and believe. Otherwise, yeah, everything in the public school system, it's like the Wild West at this point, and I think it starts at home. Uh, but like I said, if you want it to go into the education, then you got to put your kids into private schooling. If you don't want them to be exposed to that, the part with transgenderism that always kind of throws me off, and I'm not well versed and educated because I'm still looking into it, is it trips me out when I read about intersex. I just Googled it. It says 1 to 2 people out of 100 people born are considered intersex. So it's like, how does that play into transgenderism and how they identify? Because I've seen posts where people are saying that they're born intersex and then their parents chose the wrong sex and then they're given the wrong hormones and things like that. So these individuals do exist. So it's like I wouldn't want to sit here and deny that struggle. Why I don't think that we should hide that. Like that's science right there too. When those types of things happen. So it's like, do we let the public, the children, and everyone learn about those things and say that these people exist as well? Or do we hide it? So if you want to hide it or not have your children exposed, again, it goes back to my initial point, put your kids in parochial school and it won't be touched on. So I think that's I'm kind of on the fence with everything about that because I don't think that they should be hidden. I think that there needs to be everyone just needs to take control and make decisions on how they want their bubble to be. Um, and people don't want to take control, and it's kind of irritating. So,
All right, go ahead, Cookie.
Um, without getting too politically incorrect, and because I'm an educator, think they should first put health back into schools. Just regular old health class. You know what I mean? And we're dealing with this in athletics right now. So you got the trans women coming in competing with the birth-born girls. Everybody wants to make it about religion. I think religion definitely should stay out of school because the Constitution says so. Scientifically, it's impossible because as long as your chromosomes have a Y in them, you're a boy. Period. Um, if you don't have the double X helix, you're a boy. What you and your parents decide to do with your body after that and the appearance of your body is on y'all. I try to stay out of people's business. I don't have any problem with that. I know our governor doesn't stay out of people's business because in Texas, actually, you can like they're trying to make it where it like CPS should get involved if a parent's trying to transition their child too early. So I think it also depends on where you are. Um, I don't judge people. I just don't want my basketball team and my volleyball team getting dunked on by girls that were born boys, if I can keep it simple. As far as Candace Owen goes and calling it mental illness, I don't think anybody under the age of 18 should be able to make that decision. So the mental illness, if it is that, or the misunderstanding is definitely with the parents, if they're giving their 10-year-old hormones, and if they think about just birth control in itself is dangerous. So I don't know, man. I don't really be in the people business like that. I don't care what you do with your own kids. I know what mine are gonna do, and I know how it affects sports and it affects life. But I know none of it matters to me because scientifically, you're still a boy. Scientifically, you're still a woman. So I think it's all stupid. But and I agree with Candace. I mean, if you wanna play dress up and your parents allowing you to do that, do that. I don't disagree with her at all. Uh, because scientifically, that's not how that works. You can't choose to be a basketball one day and identify as that. You can apparently in America, but if you're not bouncing around on the court, you don't have Wilson stamped on you and you made out of rubber, you're not a basketball. So just got to think about some things scientifically, and I'll land there because I'm actually in education and I don't want this to pop up on me.
I appreciate your perspective. I think our children's minds are being attacked. Man. I think they're being attacked by society. It's like kind of one of those things where if you don't experience it, you may not understand. Like I have no desire to be a woman. I don't know what that feels like. So if someone was to come to me and say that this is the way that they were born, it would sound a little foreign to me because I just don't understand by you being a male, what's happening inside, and that may be something with the biology. Uh, I'm not a biology major, but I just can't see something being stirred up that says I want to be this. I think some of it is conditioning. It's probably hard for us to really measure it, but if someone was to, if one of my kids were to come in and say that they were looking to be an opposite of another sex, then I would fight against it as best as possible. I would try my hardest to get their mind on the right track, so to speak, before I just like let up and just say, okay, I accept that. It's just the way I wasn't born, and it's just something that I'm gonna stand on. When it comes to it, it's foreign to me.
I think, like, I'm sorry for cutting in. The tell me more about why you think that, and if they can't explain it, then they probably just confused. You know, I dealt with my daughter who thought she liked girls for the longest, and she found out that she didn't. You know, so I didn't go out and buy pride bracelets and hypnotize her into the rainbow, because about at 16, after her awkward phase and she became a little baddie like her mom, uh, she started getting more attention from boys. And I was like, well, I thought you liked girls. Here we are. She dates men. So any kid going through their sexuality, like, I feel like I was born a boy. Come on, man. At some point you got to sit down and talk to your kids, and not use it as an attention grab for yourself as a parent. Make your kid explain to you why you feel they feel like they was born a boy, because it could be as just as much peer pressure as somebody offering your child a cigarette or some weed at school. So I mean, like, tell me why you feel this way. You know what I mean? Talk to your kids. Don't automatically, well, let's go get the hormones. Like, come on, man. Like, let's be for real.